were told by Donald Trump that he won't raise the debt, right? We were told by MAGA Republicans they're not going to raise the debt. And this is the way that Karoline Leavitt answered that question as far as the debt limit. Have a listen to Karoline the liar Leavitt and the fake Christian in action.
Is the president okay with this bill adding to the deficit?
This bill does not add to the deficit. In fact, according to the Council of Economic Advisors, this bill will save $1.6 trillion. And the president absolutely understands and hears the concerns of fiscal conservatives and of Americans who want to get our fiscal house in order. That's what the intention of this bill is. There's $1.6 trillion worth of savings in this bill. That's the largest savings for any legislation that has ever passed Capitol Hill in our nation's history. The next bill that even comes close was $800 billion. That's less than half of the savings that we see in the One Big Beautiful Bill. And so the goal of this bill is to produce economic growth, to cut taxes, and to get our fiscal house in order. And this is the right step in the right direction towards doing that.
Really? Well, you see, you won't hear this on echo chamber right-wing radio or TV, but let me just give you the facts. She says this bill is going to save us $1.7 trillion. Oh, there's one fact check that I want to throw in there. They're seeking to increase the debt limit by $4 to $5 trillion over the next 2 years. It's all in the bill. How is that saving us money? Let me repeat that one more time so the people with the MAGA wax out of their ears maybe can understand. When Karoline Leavitt says this bill's going to be saving us $1.7 trillion, they're increasing the debt limit by $4 to $5 trillion over the course of the next 2 years. That's not hearsay. That's not opinion. That's a fact. Karoline, the liar Leavitt, is lying to the American people, but that shouldn't shock some of you. Then there's Peter Douchey, as I like to call him. But he did ask actually one fair question. Putin seemed to ghost everybody in peace talks last week. And listen to Karoline Leavitt's response to that.
Two more things. Putin ghosted everybody at these peace talks last week. As President Trump phones him today to try to figure out an end to the Ukraine war, does he think that Putin is the good guy or the bad guy?
I'll let the president speak on that conversation later. He's made his feelings about both sides of this war quite clear throughout it. He wants to see it end.
He does. He wants to see it end. Remember when he said the war was going to be over in 24 hours? Remember when he said before he even got into office, all he needed to do was pick up the phone? Do you guys remember that? I remember that. And then last week he said, give it 2 weeks. Do you remember that? Well, we're approaching close to 4 months now. I just thought I would just remind some of my MAGA friends out there that Donald Trump campaigned on the fact that he would end the war within 24 hours, just like back in 2016 when he campaigned that he was going to hire a special prosecutor to go after Hillary Clinton. Never did that. When he said he was going to build a wall and Mexico was going to pay for it, he never did that. That there would be peace in the Middle East. That's not happening. In fact, you can make the argument that in the Middle East right now, it's worse than it was on day one when he took office. All lies. Day one, I'm going to lower inflation. I'm going to lower the gas prices. All lies to the American people. But if you listen to right-wing radio, they'll make it sound like he's doing a fabulous job and there's peace everywhere, which we know that there's not. Yeah, I'm sure that phone call with Putin will be released publicly. I'm sure that there'll be a transcript of that for us to see. Yeah, not, as they would say in Wayne's World. And then Karoline Leavitt is asked about the CEO of Walmart, who a few days ago said that because of these tariffs, the price for consumers is going to go up at Walmart. There's a lot of people that shop at Walmart. I'm not one of them, but there's a lot of goods you can get there at cheap prices. The CEO of Walmart said that prices are going to spike because of Donald Trump's tariffs. And she was asked this question, and the spinning is just incredible. Listen to this.
Children.
Thank you, Karoline. President Trump and his top economic aides have repeatedly said that Americans will not pay the cost of tariffs. In fact, last week, Lutnick said people have to drop the, quote, silly arguments that consumers would pay the cost. But over the weekend, as you know, the president posted that Walmart should eat the tariffs and not charge the value customer anything. I'll be watching, and so will your customers. So does he acknowledge that if companies don't absorb the full cost, Americans will have to pay?
Well, first of all, the CEO of Walmart made those comments about the tariffs on an earnings call where CEOs, I believe, are legally obligated to give the most dire warnings and forecasts to their investors and stakeholders. The reality is, as the president has always maintained, Chinese producers will be absorbing the cost of these tariffs. And that is why China was so quick to hustle to the negotiating table with the United States of America. They need our markets, they need our consumers, and I would again point you to the inflation report that came out last week showing that inflation is declining in large part because energy prices are dropping across the board in this country because of the president's robust energy agenda that he has taken since January 20th. So the president is committed to ensuring that prices remain low for American consumers, and he maintains the position that foreign countries will absorb these tariffs.
What does he mean by "I'll be watching" to Walmart?
He'll be watching, seeing what they're doing. Jennifer.
On the
Yeah, I bet he'll be watching. Okay, so let me get this straight. You have the CEO of Walmart publicly telling the American people that they're going to be raising the cost of goods. And then Karoline Leavitt just said Donald Trump is doing all this stuff to make things cheaper for the American people. Does this make sense to anybody out there? I mean, if you have an IQ over 20 and you don't have MAGA wax in your ear, like, does this make sense to anybody? It's a blatant lie. It's ridiculous. It's the opposite. In fact, it's the American consumer that has to pay more. Oh, yeah. Speaking of paying, let's talk a little bit about that $400 million jet that I guess Qatar just decided to give to Donald Trump out of the goodness of their heart. Hey, listen, I'm sure they don't want anything in return. But now Karoline Leavitt's asked about it, and she's saying, no, it's not a donation and it's not a gift. It's just being given to the government, and you should change your story. Well, no, I'm not changing mine. But listen to Karoline Leavitt's response to this.
On the gift claim from Qatar, three things. Is there a timeline for the U.S. receiving that plane? Do you know how long it will take to retrofit the plane to presidential standards? And thirdly, has the intelligence community, security folks, have they weighed in on whether that plane can actually be secured to presidential standards?
I'm glad you brought up this question because I was watching the American press spew a lot of misinformation about the plane donation last week when we were abroad. Let's be very clear. The government of Qatar, the Qatari family, has offered to donate this plane to the United States Air Force, where that donation will be accepted according to all legal and ethical obligations. It will be retrofitted to the highest of standards by the Department of Defense and the United States Air Force. This plane is not a personal donation or a gift to the President of the United States. And everyone who wrote that last week should go and correct their stories because this is a donation to our country and to the United States Air Force. As for a timeline, because it is the United States Air Force that is accepting the plane, I would defer you to them for specifics because the President, frankly, has nothing to do with it. It's the Air Force's project to take on.
It's a donation. It's a donation, just like if we go and we donate to a soup kitchen. That's all it was. How nice of the people of Qatar. Is there anybody that frickin' believes this? Okay, it's just a donation. I'm sure they don't want anything in return. Are you kidding me? This is the same group of people that have donated to Hamas and other organizations like Hamas. These are the same people who are responsible for ending the lives of Americans in Iraq. And we are led to believe that out of the goodness of their heart, according to Karoline Leavitt, it's a quote-unquote donation. Again, if you're an extremely ignorant person and you wear the blinders and you're complicit and you're ill-informed and uneducated, let's be honest, that's much of Donald Trump's base, you're going to believe this. You're going to believe, Leavitt, that this was just a donation and they don't want anything in return. No reasonable person with an IQ of 20 would believe that. This is a joke. I don't think Donald Trump is going to fly this plane when he's president of the United States. You know what I think he's going to do? I think he's going to fly it when he leaves office. It's not going to be put in some library somewhere. It's not going to be, put up, anywhere for people to look at. It's going to be Donald Trump's plane. That's what I think. And by the way, it would cost billions of dollars for the Secret Service and the FBI and people to gut that plane and go through every inch of it. It would take literally billions of dollars to do that. I've talked to experts about this. It would cost more money to go through the plane and rip through the plane and to check every inch of the plane, which is exactly what you'd have to do, than actually the plane and what it's worth itself. It's so insane and ridiculous. Speaking of insane and ridiculous, I'm going to play one more piece of audio for you here. This is about as ridiculous as it gets. So the president just had a physical. And publicly, his last physical, it was proven that he is morbidly obese, which anybody could just look at the man's body. And trust me, I don't want to. Neither does Melania Trump. But you just look at the man's body, and he's a slob, okay? So the president apparently just had a physical, and listen to the way Karoline Leavitt described how that physical went.
Follow up on former President Biden. White House doctors may have missed the early stages of his prostate cancer. So is President Trump worried about the quality of care that presidents get here?
Not as far as President Trump is concerned. The White House physician we have here is phenomenal, and the team of physicians that take care of the president, particularly at Walter Reed Medical Center, are great. The president had his physical recently, as you know. He had perfect results. He's in very good shape. I think those of you who traveled to the Middle East with us last week can attest to the president's endurance. And by the way, I will add, we returned home from a very long and tiring trip last week, and on Saturday, where was the president? In the Oval Office working all day. He doesn't stop, he doesn't quit, he's in great health, and he trusts his physicians.
Two more things.
Yeah, 35% of the presidency since he got into office, he's been out at Mar-a-Lago and he's been playing golf. That's number one. Is there anybody that could look at Donald Trump and look at his physique and would tell you he's perfect and he's in great shape? No, of course not. That is absolutely and positively a lie. If he's not on Truth Social and he's not playing golf and he's not hanging out at Mar-a-Lago and he's not taking lavish trips to meet up with the Saudis, as Jared Kushner receiving a $2.1 billion check from them, then again, he's in great shape, perfect. Is there anybody that would label Donald Trump in great shape? Anybody? Anybody? I think most people would agree if you have male breasts, you're probably not in great shape. I'm not talking about pecs. I'm talking about breasts. Has anyone seen pictures of him without makeup on the golf course? Has anybody seen what a slob this guy looks like? But according to Karoline Leavitt, perfect physical condition, perfect results. He's in very good shape, even though he's morbidly obese. How pathetic and how embarrassing. How pathetic Karoline Leavitt is, this entire administration, and the lies that they spew and the verbal diarrhea you get from them every single day.